Welcome to Medieval Dynasty, an open-world realistic medieval life simulator and town builder simulator. In Medieval Dynasty, we will hunt, survive, build, and lead in the harsh Middle Ages, creating our own medieval dynasty to ensure its long-lasting prosperity. Or die trying. Here we have Rasimir, an 18-year-old hard-working farm boy who had it all, until his village was pillaged in the heat of war. Fleeing from his old life, he seeks his uncle Jordan to start anew in this peaceful European valley. Now we find ourselves in this valley, on the outskirts of Gustovia. Clearly the first logical step to take in this new budding land is to pick up every single stick and rock in sight. Surely this would gain the favor of our Uncle Jordan, or so I thought. I walked into town so I could speak with the Castellan of the valley, Unigost, a good-looking man of 50 years. Only I could hope to age as well as this man. It was at this point that he gave me the bad news. Uncle Jordan was dead. In fact, he died 3 years ago. Now you would think the news would have reached my mother or father in that span of time, but this is the medieval ages we were talking about. Anyways, I digress. Unigost, feeling pity on the fact that I had lost my home and family, gave me permission to build anything and anywhere in the valley, providing I pay the yearly tax to the king and not break any laws in the valley. And I was off. I crafted myself an axe from a pile of sticks and rocks that I had accumulated through my journey to Gustovia, and set off to the west, to build myself a simple but quaint small house. On my way down the road, I noticed a bird walking across the road.
Enemy spotted.
My primal instincts kicked in as I slowly snuck behind the bird and clubbed it with my stone axe. I almost felt sorry for the crow. I made a stone knife and took any meat and feathers I could find off the creature. A successful first hunt. Eventually, I made it to the location where I would start my town, New Gustovia, and after harvesting a few logs and reeds, I had built a small house to call my own. This one-room thatched cottage had a lot to offer, but the day was still young, and it was time to go back on the hunt. I set a small trap outside for any rabbits bold enough to take the bait, crafted a spear, and went out in the wilds to find some game. I found a wandering doe and took my chances. Sneaking up on the creature, I continuously threw my one spear at her until she went down. A resounding success. While basking in my delicious victory, I was ambushed by a wild boar.
Why are you running?
My spear broke, so I had no feasible means to protect myself. So I decided to lose him and skin my doe before anything else could happen. Funnily enough, I ran into the same boar on the way home. After making some new spears, I speared her right in between the eyes. When I arrived home, my rabbit trap was also triggered. Rasimir would feast tonight, that was certain. But as I cooked a mix of doe, boar, rabbit, and oblivious crow meat, I was quite gloomy that I had no one to share this feast with. After eating and losing my spears in the lake for no good reason at all, I walked to Gustovia and met the love of my life, Edburga. It was love at first sight. I knew it would take some time before Edburga would be interested, so I bided my time with small talk. Finally, after delivering some ale to Unigost, I decided it was late and I would get some rest and see what else awaited me in the morning. In the morning, I returned to Unigost, who insisted I meet an old friend of his by the name of Sambor. I also met a young lad by the name of Alwyn, who asked me to give a stick to a kid for some reason, but instead of dealing with him, I decided to make the trek to Sambor, a grisly-looking type, whom I dug up some clay deposits for. After returning the clay, Sambor told me stories of my Uncle Jordan, and how he once slept with the king's wife to get back at a lord, a true hero, which led him to become a Robin Hood of sorts. I parted with Sambor, killed a wolf that was stalking me on the road, and returned to Unigost to have him send me on another mission to retrieve his scythe from a woman whom he lost to in a game of riddles. She offered to give it to me if I successfully answered the riddle. I did not. So I would have to pay the hefty price of 450 coins to her to return it. Unfortunately, I had no money. So that night I worked in New Gustovia, completing a woodcutter and a workshop before bed. The next day, I schmoozed around town, talked to Edburga and a few other villagers, bought the scythe, and returned it to Unigost before heading back up to Sambor. It appeared that the grizzled man had an owl problem, which ended up not being an owl, but a man in a bush. I was ready to put him down, but he ran off with his tail between his legs, not before finding who sent him though. Wolrad. Sambor somehow found this amusing and asked me to come back tomorrow. Upon arrival in the morning, he gave me a nice warm package and asked me to get it to Wolrad with haste. I, unsuspecting of anything going on, happily walked across the map. Turns out what I was delivering was just a pile of shit. Thanks, Sambor. Wolrad then asked me to kill his cow. What's wrong with this guy? I killed his cow and challenged a villager to a hunting competition before heading home and building a hunting lodge. New Gustovia was really turning into a nice hamlet at this point. The next morning, I flirted with Edburga, bought some seeds for the up-and-coming farm, and woke Alwyn up to see if he needed any help. Turns out his water skin was leaking, so I took up the task myself to go fix it. But first I would need to start my own farm. I made some space behind the house, fertilizing and plowing the land before planting a few cabbages. Hopefully by next season, these would be ready to be harvested. Before heading off to Matilda to fix Alwyn's water skin, I built a well so I no longer had to drink in the water that I also bathed myself in. Matilda said she could fix Alwyn's water skin, but would need some materials for it. Me, being the successful hunter I was, went out to retrieve some deer hide, a simple task. As the sun set, I arrived back in Gustovia with Alwyn's fixed water skin, then talked to Unigast about an old fling he had with a woman named Kestrel. Apparently him and Uncle Jordan had loved the same woman, but Unigast kept his affair with Kestrel secret. Eventually, Jordan and Unigast split ways with Kestrel after she birthed the stillborn child, not knowing which one of them was the father. Unigast said Sambor may know where she resides, so I'll need to talk to him about that later. But this is where we will end our first chapter of Medieval Dynasty. There's still many things to see, many things to do, and many people to meet. I hope you've enjoyed this little journey I've made thus far. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.